All right, so for the purposes of our recorded meeting today, I'll do a very quick introduction to myself. So my name is Emma Darcy. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a senior solution architect over at Hitachi Solutions for the Power Platform, also a business applications MVP, and I specialize in Power Platform, specifically Power Platform governance. So in today's super fast session, I'm going to be going through Power Platform governance at a pretty quick speed today, going through some of the best practices, some of the recommendations, and then some little bits and pieces around toolkits that you can use to help implement governance at your organization. So first things first, I am going to make some assumptions in today's presentation around everyone's knowledge of the Power Platform. If you're not familiar with what the Power Platform is, highly recommend going out and taking a look. At a very high level, it is a no-code, low-code platform that allows businesses to implement their own business solutions and allows our own users to create those solutions too, meaning that we no longer have to purchase solutions off the shelf or have very expensive developers come in and build those solutions for us. If that sounds really, really interesting, I highly recommend going out and doing a quick Google of Power Platform. You will absolutely find hundreds of resources available to you. With that in mind, I'm going to go through a couple of slides today at a very high level of just typical Power Platform landscapes and organizations. And if you have Power Platform implemented at your own organization or you are considering it, this is very much what a typical landscape will look like. When you implement Power Platform, what you will end up finding is about 80% of solutions that are built on the Power Platform are usually citizen developer type applications, ones that are for personal productivity or are for business use cases, things that are not super critical or important, i.e. if they end up not working, or if they stop working, the whole business isn't going to implode. So it's not a huge big deal. Whereas in contrast to that, about 20% of solutions we see on the Power Platform are going to be those business critical solutions that we see, such as maybe your CRM system, for example, your customer service system, your sales system, all that kind of stuff. Those are typically ones that we see that are critical applications. So if they do go down, they are going to have a major impact on the organization. So there's a couple of differences in between these two different types of apps. The ones at the lower end of the scale here, about the 80% of solutions, these ones are going to be solutions that are built very, very quickly. They're not super complicated. They're going to be pretty cheap to implement, if not free to implement. From a development perspective, such as your citizen developers will be building them themselves, whereas your 20% of solutions are going to be your money makers. Those are the ones that are going to cost a little bit more, probably take a little bit longer to implement, and usually they're built by super users, by your Center of Excellence team, and sometimes in conjunction with partners. So if you are implementing either customer service or sales or any of those big things built on Dataverse and Power Platform, you would usually engage a partner to do so. So what we would want to see then is our IT admins. So when we're talking about Power Platform and implementing Power Platform, we want the majority of our IT admins, our resources, our time, and our concentration to really be going into those 20% of solutions that are a lot more critical to the business. And when we talk about governance, governance really is about two key things. It is about making safe spaces for makers to build your 80% of solutions, but also ensuring, sounds of the city behind us here, also ensuring that 20% of those solutions, the IT admins aren't being overburdened with the 80% that have been built. They're focusing their energies and all their resources on those 20% of solutions. So why is governance so important? We've implemented Power Platform, and a lot of the things that we wanted to do is basically creating those solutions for our users to build without having to purchase something. And governance is important because of two things, really: making that safe space for makers, and also ensuring that implementing the Power Platform doesn't add additional burden or stress onto departments that are already pretty resource strapped, especially our IT departments. So if we implement the Power Platform, it really should relieve the IT departments of that stress of having to implement things out of the box for people, for their business solutions that they need. And if it's not implemented properly, it can actually have the opposite effect. So it's really important for us to create those safe spaces for makers, protect the business, but also give back time and resources to those departments so they can focus on those critical apps, those 20%. And we talk about some of the admin challenges on the Power Platform. There really are 4 key areas I like to talk about. And the first one is time constraints. business comes along and says, hey, IT, we like the Power Platform. This sounds great. We want to implement it. IT are going to come back and say, whoa, okay, we're already strapped for time. How much time is this going to take us to implement? Who do we have to train? What do we have to support? We really don't have any of the time to do this. On top of that, ownership. Who is going to have to own this entire new platform? It's not like we're implementing QuickBooks at an accountancy firm and Bob in the corner is going to take ownership of it. The Power Platform really is a whole organization solution. So it's very important that we think through who is actually going to own the platform. IT are certainly going to want to push back on this. The next thing we take a look at is sprawl. When you start to implement Power Platform, people are going to get word pretty fast. This is a pretty cool tool. I was able to build this one thing that solved this one solution for me. Here, you should have a try, and start sharing out applications. And before you know it, there's about 700 environments with 5,000 apps, and everybody does not know what's going on. So Wild West. So we need to ensure that we do allow our makers to make, but we have to ensure we're keeping an eye on sprawl as well. And finally, adoption is pretty key when you implement anything new, not only a platform. So we want to ensure that the Power Platform is being adopted at scale, and also people are using it. They know what it can do. So those are a couple of the challenges of the Power Platform implementation that we're going to address today. So how do we governance? And this could be a tricky one. And I will say, having done this for a while now, implementing governance looks different at every single organization I speak to. But it really does come down to three key things. The first one is people. We need to put together the right people that are going to implement our plan. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to take IT and ask them to do all the implementation for us. That is absolutely the opposite of what we want to do. What we need to do is we need to create what's called a Center of Excellence team. And the Center of Excellence team is going to consist of certainly some IT resources for sure, but the burden's not on IT. It's going to be other people as well, such as your business users. So these are going to be the people that are creating the solutions that are needed for the Power Platform. Not only that, we're also going to include people who have been using the Power Platform, have found it very successful, and are going to evangelize it at the organization as a whole. So first and foremost, we have to put our people together before we can actually start our planning. And the planning part is going to consist of thinking about your security policies, thinking about how do we create those safe spaces for makers? How do we allow them to make in a way that's not going to restrict them, but also protect the business? Make sure that we're not sprawling, make sure that licenses are kept in check, making sure that applications are being built in line with correct standards. And once we start planning, we can now take a look at some of the tools that are available for us to implement our governance plan. And when we talk about tools, we really are talking about the Center of Excellence Starter Kit as a starter, which it very much is called. And how can we expand on that tool to make governance work for our organization? So I quickly mentioned what is the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. Now, note in the conversation today, I'm going to be saying the words Center of Excellence and Center of Excellence Starter Kit, two very different things. Your Center of Excellence are your people, your Starter Kit is your toolkit. And when you take a look at the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, when you start to open up that toolbox, you'll notice there are a couple of things in there that are going to be very key to helping you get set up. And I typically break them down into three areas. Now, the nice thing about the Center of Excellence Starter Kit is that it can be implemented in line with what's important for the organization. Some organizations are going to be mature in different areas. Some organizations are going to be more mature in different areas than others. So, for example, you may be working at an organization where nurture isn't really needed. Everybody knows what the Power Platform can do, but we probably need to put some security and DLP policies in place because things are a little bit Wild West. So maybe we need to take a look at those aspects before we move on. So the three key areas you have, of course, are your admin, and those are going to be your core components that you absolutely need to get set up. Before you even start planning or talking anything governance, you need to know what your current landscape looks like. So to do that, you would definitely take a look at the core components of the COE Starter Kit and get those implemented. And in the core components, you have really nice things such as your Power Platform Admin Kit, your BI report, some things like implementing DLP policies. How is that going to impact the apps I currently have? All that good stuff. Once you have that implemented, you can start to take a look at either your governance or your nurture components. Your governance are going to be very much your guidance on what's happening in the organization right now. So who are your makers? You're going to be able to implement tools that will prevent sprawl, basically create business cases that allow people to request things, but they have to have a reason why. So kind of prevent people from just willy-nilly creating applications left, right, and center. There's some approval processes in there too. And then your nurture components. If you're happy enough with the maturity level of your governance, you can then start to break into nurture. And nurture components are going to do things like allow people to sign up for app in a day or create some theming catalogs. So one of the very, very key components of the governance plan that most people will implement at their organization is very much going to be around ALM and environment strategy. And environment strategy is going to be very much key to any governance plan at any organization. And a lot of people are kind of wondering, firstly, what's an environment? And secondly, why do I need a plan for them? Well, your environments are going to be how you categorize what apps are going where and what kind of security is required for those environments. And typically environments really should be broken down to 3 different categories. And your first one will be productivity. So when you spin up a Power Platform tenant, you will always have a default environment. And typically we put that as the productivity environment. So any apps that are built in a productivity environment are really going to be, you know, my calculator, my plant organizer, my recipe book, things that are for personal productivity, maybe not the recipe book, but things that if they break, the organization is not going to suffer in any way, shape, or form. They're going to be that very safe space for makers, for people who have the training wheels on and they're starting to learn, they're playing around, they're kind of messing things up, they're figuring it out. But while they build in this environment, it's not going to have an impact on the rest of the organization. And there's typically very strict DLP policies in there. Next, we have your important environments, and those are going to be applications that are built that are going to be kind of important to certain departments or teams, but again, if they go down, not mission critical issue. The DLP policies in here are going to be a lot more robust, but not as strict as what you would have in your productivity. And we would also have security roles to ensure that only certain people have access to them. And finally, your environments that are critical. And any environments that are designated or critical are where your mission critical apps are going, your CRM system, etc. Some key things to note about your critical environments are that DLP policies will be very strict. You'll have to ensure that production data does not kind of go outside of the realm of that environment if necessary. And also there might be some ALM practices in there too. So your important and your critical environments are probably going to take up about 80 to 90% of the environments in your tenant. And you're also going to see some ALM policies in place with those too. So this is a quick look at what the Power Platform Admin Center dashboard looks like. I don't see my notes, so I have no idea why this slide is here, but I'm going to take a guess anyway. And when you are implementing any governance plan, I said at the start, you need to have a good idea as to what your landscape looks like. And the core components of the Center of Excellence Starter Kit are where you're going to do that. When you implement the core components, you're going to get access to a beautiful application like this. And for those of us who have been around the Power Platform for long enough, we'll identify this as a model-driven app. So the nice thing about that is it can be extended to do whatever it is that your heart desires around any of the admin tools you have here. So once you implement the tools and once you get your flows up and running, you'll be able to see from here, and I can see in the overview dashboard exactly who my makers are, what my environments are, what kind of flows are running, what kind of connectors they have, all that good stuff is going to be here right at your fingertips. So I'm going to go through some of the tools apparently because I've forgotten the flow of this presentation, but here we go. We're going to go through some of the admin components that we have in the Center of Excellence Toolkit. And the first thing we have here is the set app and flow permissions. And these are apps that come with the core components of the Center of Excellence Starter Kit and are really helpful for admins to be able to bulk set permissions for different flows and apps, but also allows you to see different kind of orphaned apps and flows too. So if somebody leaves the organization, they no longer have ownership of their application, we can set that here with the Canvas app. Other things as well is the Power BI dashboard report. And this one I really like from a executive's position as well, because when somebody says, hey, we implemented the Power Platform, how is it going? I need to see my return on investment. This is a really great tool to be able to demonstrate very quickly the usage of the Power Platform across an entire tenant. Some of our governance components that we wanted to get into as well, when we talked about managing Sprawl earlier on, one of the best things I can think of when it comes to that is the Developer Compliance app. So basically when a maker is creating an application, if they need a premium connector for something, and they have to submit a business case for that, they can also check and see if their app is in compliance with standards the business has set. So basically, it means the ownership is now on the person creating the app rather than IT to ensure that it's been being built to compliance standards. There's also app and flow archival flows that you can set in place too. So basically when an app or when a flow has not been touched in 3 months or 6 months, we can notify the owners of those particular items and we can let them know, hey, we're going to pen this or we're going to archive this unless you let us know why we should not, which is a really nice way of managing Sprawl. Another great thing is you can now see Teams environments in your Center of Excellence starter kit too, so you can keep an eye on how many team environments are being spun up. There are some auditing tools as well in here. So when an admin is taking a look at an application that's being built, we can see easily using the business process flow what stage of development that application is into. So you don't have to go in and take a look at the application directly. You don't have to hassle with developers. You can just see it straight up from here. And of course, the nurture components that I mentioned earlier, the in-a-day management, being able to register for in-a-day training, etc. There are app templates and catalogs in there that have gotten a lot better in recent development of the COE. So if you didn't like the nurture components previously, highly encourage everyone to take a look at that because things have definitely improved. And one of the other things I highly recommend as well is it's not in the Center of Excellence starter kit, but it's a recommendation I make, is to start a component library so that your makers have pre-made components that are in line with your brand guidelines to add to their apps. So now that we've kind of gone through a couple of things here, how will implementing these tools help our organization? So we saw from a time constraints perspective, IT admins are going to be like, oh my God, it's going to take so much time. But when you implement the Center of Excellence starter kit, you're going to be able to have complete visibility across the platform, so you no longer have to hassle Bob or Joe to ask them how their application is going. You're also going to be able to bulk update permissions from a single Canvas app, set business requirements, and also automate a ton of processes such as environment requests. Other things are like ownership. So no longer do IT have to bear the burden of ownership for every single app that is being built on the platform. You can categorize apps to define that ownership. So anything being built in either an important or productivity environment is no longer the burden of IT. It's now on the people or the department building those apps to take care of them. We can also manage our orphan apps and flows, as I mentioned earlier, setting those business requirements for apps as well. So ensuring that the ownership is on the developer to make sure their application is in compliance with organization standards, and also being able to archive unused apps and flows is really helpful too. Sprawl as well. So we've seen a couple of things you can do with Sprawl, such as that auto archival I mentioned, some of those business cases for premium licenses. So no longer do we give everybody the access to a premium license, which can get expensive. They have to have business requests for that, so we can maintain Sprawl in that way. Also being able to keep an eye on capacity is really nice to keep an eye on any Teams environments that are being spun up. And finally, adoption as well, as we mentioned, app catalogs and templates are something that we can do. And ensuring that you just have a safe space for development really helps ensure adoption, allow people to make, allow people to grow and create and see what they can do. And that is my entire presentation. And hopefully I didn't go over time, I'm not sure.
Governance is so important. Governance is so important, Emma.
It's a lot.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking through like all my projects, how important it is.
I will say with the engagements I'm doing, I'd say I do about 2 presentations for organizations every day. So yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, actually, you're getting roped in for some work I'm doing right now. So yeah.
Sounds
really
right.
Need it. Yeah, we really need it. So very exciting. I'll dive in. Let me share my screen. I'm trying out a new presentation tool today. So we'll see.
Sure.
We'll see how this looks. One sec.
Thanks so much, Emma. That was really great.
Sure. Hopefully it wasn't too quick. I tried to get it into 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, you're good.